Hey guys, this is Purna. We are continuing reactjs training session, and today we are going to discuss about react forms. Here is the table of content for the session today. We'll talk about react forms, then uncontrolled component, control component. We'll talk about useRef hooks, and also we will discuss when to use controlled component and uncontrolled component. So what is react forms? So forms are the crucial component in React web application. Forms allow user to directly input and submit data in components. For example, from login page to checkout page, we can manage the data through forms. As React applications are the single page applications or web applications that load a single page through which new data is displayed dynamically. You won't submit the information directly from the form to a server. Instead of that, we capture the form data on the client side and send or display it using additional JavaScript code. So here is an example of forms. So React form is nothing different as HTML forms. So HTML forms have a event called onSubmit. Through that we can collect the data while submitting the form. So what is uncontrolled component, control component, and when to use useRef, right? React forms present a unique challenge because you can either allow the browser to handle the form elements and collect the data through React change event or using control reference, or you can use React to fully control the element by setting and updating the input value directly. The first approach is called uncontrolled component because React is not setting the value here. Here we can fetch the data through control reference using useRef hook. So why I'm saying useRef hook here? Because as I said in our previous session, so we are gonna use functional component only because hardly people are using class component nowadays. And the second approach is called control component because React is actively updating the input. In uncontrolled component, if we need to fetch the value of the control, we have to get the data through ref or reference element. In control component, the form control data connected through the state. Hence, we can fetch the data from the state directly. And the useRef hooks help us to access the DOM element directly. We need to add ref attribute to the element to access directly into the DOM. Okay, let's come to the VS Code. We'll explore a few examples of uncontrolled component and control component. Here I have a component called uncontrolled component. So if you see this code, especially the render part of it, so we have a form tag. Inside the form, we have a input control for text box. Basically, it's collecting the name, and I have a submit button, input type submit, value submit. And here in this form on submit event, I'm calling handle submit method. So if you see the handle submit method here, the first statement is event.prevent default. So whenever we submit a form, basically it submits the form into DOM. So just to cancel that default behavior, we are just preventing that default form submission. Because it will refresh the page, so we don't need to do that because it's a single page application. And I'm printing the control value through a name ref. So as for the definition we saw, right, in uncontrolled event, basically if you want to access the data, we need to use reference, right? So here I'm using the ref attribute of this control, and I'm passing a name reference, and this name ref is defined through the useRef hook. So in the handle submit, I'm using that name ref, and this name ref return the current element. Nameref dot current dot values, we can get the value which is there. Let me refresh the page here. So this is what you can see, the uncontrolled component, and I have a text box. So this is a label, and when I am changing text here, right, let's say Steve. So if I submit this, I can see in the console that Steve is printed. If I want to update something like XYZ and submit, so you can see the values that we are fetching. So let me try to access the name ref value directly. You can see here, right, after the submit button I have a div. In that div, basically I'm using name ref current dot value, which I was getting from the submit. And let me refresh the page. So this throws an error saying like cannot read properties of undefined or reading values, right? So what I need to do, right? So I'll have to use some null check. Here, so that we can remove the error. So let me refresh it. So the error is gone. But if I change something, that I cannot see the change values with this. So what I will do here, I will create a state variable, let's say name state, and it has a setter method set name. So let me remove that name ref current dot values, because it is not giving any data. Instead of that, I will use state, name state basically, and this name state we are setting the values while submitting the forms, basically the name ref current dot values. Now let me refresh the page again. It's still not show the change value, but if I click on submit, I can see that value is coming. Yes. So this is how we can fetch data from uncontrolled component using ref. Now let's see the example of control component. So if you see this component, right, so I'm not using any useRef hook here, because if you see the control component definition, right, in the control component form data is connected through the state. So anytime we can access the state values to fetch the current data or set the data also, set the value to the control specially. So here you can see I have a state called name, set name for setter method, and if you see the render sections, so I have a form tag. Inside the form tag, I have the input text. You can see the difference here. I'm using the values name. So this value is basically used to bind the data from the state into the input values, input control, and it has a new event onChange. So basically in onChange, I am calling the handle change method. So in this handle change, I'm collecting that event.target.value, basically the current text values, and setting with the name state. So this is the only change. And while input type submit, it calls the handle submit method, and as like we have to stop the default form submit behavior, so we have to use event.prevent default function, and I am logging the name value in the console. And similarly, in the result text, the div after the submit button, so I am showing the name values. So let me map this component. If I refresh the browser, here you can see, now you can see the control component. And if I change something here, like anything I am changing, that immediately it is reflecting in the state. And if you click on the submit, you can notice that in console also we are logging the current state values. So basically in the control component, we provide the data to the input controls, and also we read the data from the input control through the change event, so that our state is sync with the control. So anytime we can fetch the data from the state. So as you can see, right, if I change anything, that directly it is reflecting. So in most of the cases, people use control component. Okay, let me take you back to the slide. Okay. When to use a controlled or uncontrolled component? So the uncontrolled component are best for the simplicity, but might not fit for the situations when a components need to be clear or pre-populated with data. Control components give you more opportunity to update the data or setting input values, but can add another level of abstractions that may cause unintentional bugs or re-renders. So in industry, most of the people are using control component only. So uncontrolled component is just for some basic things, but it might not be fit for something complex forms that we are designing. This is all for the sessions today. Thank you. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment and share. Please subscribe my channel.